Hello and welcome to Riff TV. My name is Jason J. Rock Houston. We got two of the members of the band, In Theory. We have with us Mike Mostert, the guitarist, and Tony, you're the singer, right?
I'm the singer, yes.
And so, how did In Theory first come together? How did you guys first hook up and come to form the band?
You got it, Tony.
Well, me and Mike, we knew each other. We and Mike knew each other a long time. So we've always had a connection.
Did you guys like go to school, grow up together, or more?
No, we didn't go to school together. I was in a band, and I think it was 1990, 91.
Oh, wow.
And we were auditioning, for guitarists, and Mike was the person who came down to audition, and ever since then, when you're in the music business, sometimes you're just attached to people who like and focus, and we were just kind of best friends.
Were you guys in rival bands when you first met?
No, we were on the same circuit, so but I didn't really know Tony and vice versa. And we always have a running joke. They were having the auditions at the time, and I think I was the only one to show up, so I won the gig.
Wow! How cool is that? And was the chemistry immediate? Like, you guys feel it? Like, okay, there's something between us, as far as your writing and your musical.
I think so. I think Tony. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, I think we bonded on all levels really quick, and musically, just personality wise, and then I never want to put a damper on things, but then Tony and I also have a thing with our brothers both, died around the same time.
Oh, wow.
So combination of the friendship, the music, the interests we have, and then of course, like I always say, it's a club that I don't wish on anybody. And then Tony and I belong to that club of, our brothers, passing young. And then from then, Tony and I have just been, just been really, I think, closer than family.
Sure. I mean, that'll connect you. I mean, it gives you guys something that you have in common besides the music. As you say, it's a club you don't want to belong to. But being that you guys had that common experience, I was curious if any of the songs have based on, your loss that you guys experienced, losing your brothers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's always usually
in the back of your mind, right? Yeah, you can't.
Well, it's not even back in your mind. Best way I can explain is it oozes through.
Yeah.
Because as an artist or whatever, your experiences are always part of you, and when you get into a certain, like if you're writing one that's got to catch your attention, like that's gonna ooze through. You can't deny it. It's like all the pain you've ever been through in life.
Sure.
Use that as fuel, and
I don't think it's intentional. I think, like Tony says, you get into the headspace, and it could just be a chord progression, and he sings a melody, and all of a sudden, that emotion is coming through musically and lyrically, and then we.
I think whether you're writing about a personal loss like that, like a personal family member, and it really affected you, or even writing about, a broken relationship with a fellow, girlfriend or wife or whatever. A lot of times, some of the best songs, unfortunately, are written or created out of, kind of that tension or that sorrow that you experience in your life.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So, to answer your question, it's always present. So,
not to harp on this, but I got to tell you guys, I think the best compliment I can give you, and what I like people to take away from this interview, is to be honest with people. I've only watched the one video for the current single, "Stain on My Soul," and interestingly enough, the song was so good, it really hit a nerve with me that I have the feeling now, as I sit here talk to you, I can't wait to hear, the rest of the songs or the rest of the album. It left that strong an impression, like it's that good. I can't wait to hear if the rest of the album sounds like this, if songs are all different, or it was just that good. It struck a nerve with me.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I will say, and again, to be fair, I'm just judging it on hearing the one song, but I would kind of say, staying on my soul. I just got done watching a video for talking to you guys today before we came on and did this, and it's kind of a hard rock, Led Zeppelin. That's kind of the vibe, but like when most people think of Led Zeppelin could be like blues, it could be rock. It's a little bit of everything. So I don't know if that's a fair comparison, because saying like hard rock Led Zeppelin, I would definitely say you kind of got your own thing going as well. You don't come across as like Led Zeppelin clone band. It's just kind of
Yeah,
your influence coming out. Yeah,
we're okay with the comparisons.
yeah,
Yeah, we're definitely not a clone band, but
exactly. You got
those
your own thing going.
those things, yeah, those things, Deep Purple, like all that stuff.
Mhm.
Um, we channel through. We do it
Sure.
our way.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're
yeah.
not trying to sound like them, but you might hear things that bleed through. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when we do it, we sprinkle just enough of our influences that you're like, oh, I hear a little Zeppelin, or I hear a little Soundgarden, or I hear a little bit, XYZ.
Yeah.
And I think the key for Tony and I is just finding the right enough blend that's always what we think is us.
Yeah. So Tony, I was curious. You're the singer and the front man, but like, do you also play the guitar? Like when you guys create and write music, you come out with the guitar and you and Mike create the riffs together.
No, I try to keep the
No,
guitar.
yeah, no, I don't. I mean, for my own, when I'm working on melodies
That's
and
what I mean.
stuff
Yeah.
like that, I'll strum the guitar, but I don't play guitar on stage or anything.
Okay, that's what I was asking. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And how about you, Mike? I was reading that on the press release the publicist sent me on the band that before this you were signed to EMI. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, and when we were signed to EMI, again, it was Tony and I were both signed to EMI.
Okay. Okay.
We were in a band called Big Mouth with the hair metal band. So we had the
Yeah.
big rock helmets at the time.
Wow.
We just felt it was a great band, sort of at the wrong time. The way that the music industry was run at that time. Every genre had their 4-year period or 5-year period. Disco had their period, and then they were gone, and then punk had their period, and hair metal, and then grunge. And when we got signed to EMI, we were right towards the end of the big hair metal. And while it was a great band, I think timing was just slightly off. But Tony and I are really still very proud of that record, and that record still holds up today. It's a great record. We'd have on that record was Steve Riley from LA Guns was the drummer. Yeah, it was a great band. A lot different than In Theory, but definitely a great band.
How did you guys hook up with a guy like Steve? That's pretty cool.
Steve, it was just like a lot of friends of our friends. It's that's just how the industry works. Everybody's 2 degrees away from each other, and then or you've shared a stage with the bass player from this band, or a drummer from this band, or a singer from this band, and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, I know this bass player will be great for you, right? Or I know this drummer. And
And I
throughout
love the fact, Mike, when you talk about what came before, that it's not like some people do where, oh man, yeah, that sucked what we did back then, and oh man, I don't know what we were thinking. I love the fact that it came before, and you're like, we're still really proud of that stuff, and as you probably should be. And I'm almost guessing on what you're telling me is, if we were to look at a picture of that band, you guys would look totally different, but as you should, because it was a different type of band. And I got no problem with that, because I love bands like everything from Alice Cooper, Kiss, Motley Crue. I love bands that kind of entertain us. They go a little more to the extreme of just getting up there in their jeans and t-shirts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we're still like that, but the look is a little bit different when we're on stage. We're definitely
Yeah.
Tony and I are very we still like old school. Like I still think how I feel like it could be anywhere from Kiss to like BB King, right? BB King is going to walk on the stage. He's got his suit.
Yeah. Oh, sure. I mean, I almost get the feeling like you guys are kind of you're all about the song. What fits the song, and so what would you say is the sound of your band? Would you say you found the sound? You're kind of in the process of creating that sound.
we get described a lot as what they call like a hard rock
Yeah.
Swamp sound or swamp hard rock.
There you go.
Because there is a little bit of Zeppelin, there is a little bit of Soundgarden, there is a touch of gospel, but there's also another gear of where it's a bit heavier. There's also a Rage Against the Machine, but there's just so many influences. But
And see,
that's
and I think where you're going to shine is through your guys' songwriting, because like to be fair, I just heard the one track, and I was even thinking myself, yeah, it's kind of got a Zeppelin influence, but there's a little more there. I mean, and if you go back to look at the history of rock and roll, even Elvis did like he started out doing gospel and different blues and different things, and ultimately rock and roll. But you know, there's plenty, and I think that's what makes a band like this maybe it's going to be interesting to people, because you're not just a one-trick pony. You're going to have different types of songs. You might have who knows, you might have a rock ballad, you might have a rock. Excuse me. Excuse me. Yeah, sorry. But so how would you guys describe, you know, your songwriting? Is that kind of your attitude? Well, we'll go in there and kind of we'll see what comes out, and whatever we create, we create.
That's pretty much it. I mean, we never set out, hey, we're going to have this sound, this song's going to be the ballad, or this song's going to be hard rocker. You know, but you know, it's basically I'm just coming up with riffs, and it has to pass, I call the riff stage, and you know, I'll send off the riff to Tony, and then we just start bouncing back and forth, and if it's something that is just hitting on all, we're feeling even in the demo stage, if it's hitting on all cylinders and it sounds great at the demo stage, then we keep moving forward with that idea. But it's never like, well, it's got to sound like this, or it's got to sound like that. It's just, you know, sometimes, you know, it ends up as, you know, as being a surprise.
Yeah. That's I think pretty cool. And you know, Staying on My Soul, again, being that I've just seen the one video and the one song, it kind of leaves me wanting more. And the interesting thing about the video is, to me, it looked like I must say, very professionally shot. It looks like something that you might have seen on MTV back in the day. So let's talk a little bit about the video. And did that take all day to shoot, or what was it like putting that together?
Yeah, that was well, I mean, it's a process, right? So
Yeah.
if we're starting to shoot at 9 turns into 10, but we got to be there at 6.
Yeah.
You got to get dressed. You know, there's makeup involved, there's hair. I mean, you know, everybody's got to do it. Because you got cameras, you got lights. If you
Sure.
don't do those things, you're gonna look like crap.
Yeah.
So just to get to the shooting part is 4 hours.
Oh, yeah.
And then we probably ran through the song, I don't know, what, 15 times, 16 times, different angles, different shots. If you see the video, like we're doing a band performance, and then you'll see me and Mike with a blue light behind us.
Yeah.
Those are all different takes of the song, you
Yeah.
know. So it's pretty intense. I mean, you know, it's like doing at least for me, it's like doing a live show,
Oh, sure.
because I'm not lip syncing. Even though you can't hear me sing, I'm singing it because I can't pretend to sing.
Wow, I love that. Yeah.
So to make it look authentic, I'm singing the song 16 times, and I don't know what take, and Mike can attest to this too. I don't know what take they're going to use.
Yeah.
So there's no break. Like you always got to try to, I call it, look cool at every, even if Mike's playing a guitar solo, what am I doing?
Yeah.
You know, I don't have a break because they might come to me and then go back to him. So I can't just stand there. So it's very physical.
And how involved were you guys with the like the creating the story and that for the video, or do you have somebody else like a director do that?
In this case, it was the director, but basically, you know, they were just letting us be us, how we would be on stage. And yes, it was almost 6 to 8 hours of just go. And Tony and I are like that, whether on stage or studio or, you know, in front of the camera.
Yeah.
We're 150% all the time.
Oh, sure.
So, and it's definitely you know, by the end of the day, we are shocked, because it is like we're going, I mean, we've gone through the song, like we said, with the band X amount of time, you know, with myself X amount of time, and then Tony X amount of time, and then we do different scenes X amount of times on top of that. So it's definitely a lot to keep up that energy.
And I would think by the end of the day, like you guys are kind of describing, it must be like a sweat fest. You must have felt like you just came off the stage, you know?
Pretty
Yeah,
much.
yeah,
Yeah.
for
And
sure.
you know, that must be talk about interpretation. That's got to be an interesting thing. You guys write the song and then they want to create a music video for it. You know, that's the process. And then somebody else, the director comes and creates a story based on the song you guys wrote. And it's kind of interesting, like maybe, well, that's not what the song is really about, but that's a cool idea as far as coming up with the story for the video, you know?
Yeah, yeah. What we didn't do, me and Mike wanted, at least at this point, we were doing, because we think our energy comes across when we're performing.
Oh,
So
sure.
we didn't want to do like, you know, a
Yeah.
storyboard with
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
guy who's leaving a girl and like
Yeah.
all that. We were like, we want to capture how we would play it live and
Yeah.
the energy, and we wanted to get what we do across
I
in
think
that
you
song.
definitely did that. I mean, and I think the fact that, like you say, Tony, that you're not just up there lip syncing, you're actually doing it as if you were up on stage. That gives it that authenticity where, yeah, okay, he's
Yeah.
not faking it, you know?
Yeah, you can't fake, like you could tell, I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
at least I can as a singer, I could tell when somebody's lip syncing it, even though you can't hear them singing. I
yeah,
could tell just by
yeah,
the muscles in your neck, I could tell you're not singing or
yeah,
you are singing, you know.
yeah.
So I wanted that to be authentic and I wanted our energy to come through.
And I think it comes through because I tell you, after watching the video myself, it's like, man, you know, just watching this performance that these guys must be good, or you know, they've at least got me convinced that, and I got to go see them in concert. You know, it's that good. And even if you're the best actor, yeah, I tell you, you put on a winning performance. You know.
Thank you,
Yeah,
appreciate that.
and that's part of what. See, that's the other thing about doing a music video, whether it's a storyboard or performance, like you're saying. You want to leave the fans with something a little extra. Like, I mean, you get the experience of hearing a song initially, maybe on the radio. It's totally different than somebody watches a music video. They get, you know, it's a different experience. It's visual. It's they're listening to it. They're seeing it, and you know that's just how people remember certain bands from certain songs. I mean, it's funny to hear all these years later, but I heard Joe Elliott tell a story about when they initially released Hysteria. The album wasn't doing great initially; it stalled, and it wasn't until they released "Pour Some Sugar on Me," which was the last song they ever wrote for that album, and all of a sudden the album exploded.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
yeah. And so you guys were telling me that you're getting ready to go on tour, do some shows. So are you going to be touring just around your local area? Or are you going all over the U.S.?
Well, I think the plan right now is initially they have us, I think, doing the Southeast and Midwest through the end of the year. You know, that's the first stage of it. There's a lot of talk next year of you know, Europe or worldwide and expanding further. So it's whatever our team is coming up with. Right now they're routing it out and see what makes sense.
Will
But I
this
think
be like a tour where you're touring with like different bands in different cities? Is it a headlining tour?
yeah, it's gonna be all of the above. I know they're trying to get us festivals and they're doing where we may be playing with like-minded fans, where like-minded bands that has similar fan base that would like our music, and there'll be situations where we're the headliner. So it's wherever they feel like we're gonna fit best.
Great, great. And
then
so
we're
we've
just
been talking a lot about the single, the video, staying on my soul. Let me ask you guys, what is your current process? Is this on a full length album that's coming out, an EP? Are we releasing a single and a song at a time? What's your process?
Well, yeah, I mean, me,
Yeah, we're losing Tony.
me and Mike,
Okay.
we're using Tony a little bit. He's
Yeah,
freezing.
so maybe you could help us, Mike. So are you guys like working
So-
towards an album?
Yeah, I you know, it's a crazy world out there. Because we actually have a full length album that we released, and you know, but even with that, we were very strategic. You know, I just think
so even though
Yeah.
I still think the way the music business today is teaching artists how not to make money,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's terrible what they're doing. And when we released the first record, so to speak, we only put out 2 singles on streaming.
Yeah.
And it was deliberate that we did that. Just because I felt the way they do, I don't know, I just felt the way they were doing streaming, how you get paid, you don't really get paid so well. So what we did is we just put out the 2 singles and use our marketing to drive people to the website to buy the CD.
Yeah.
And we probably made, we did quite well, bottom line numbers to what would be equal to, 10 million, 20 million, maybe even more streams, but that went directly to the band. But we also understand that there is a necessary evil of doing this,
Sure.
of doing the streaming, and because a lot of your bookings get based upon those numbers, or or other factors in music. They look at that, but those numbers don't really do anything. I feel whatever income wise.
Mike, I think you're on the same page as me, because I'm an old school guy. I grew up in the era where we used to go to the music store, folks, and we buy albums and support the bands we loved. Unfortunately, it's not too much like that any days. I mean, I live in Los Angeles, and the closest record store to me is like an hour away in Hollywood.
Where you got probably Amoeba Music, probably, right?
Yeah, that's the one. Or, to be honest, I buy a lot of stuff through Amazon because I know I can get it there. But I miss the days of going to Tower Records and stuff like that. And I talk to kids.
Sunset was the place to be.
Yeah, I talk to kids who tell me, "Oh man, I don't even buy it. I'm not into buying albums. I just buy whatever the latest single is for 99 cents." I'm like, man, you don't know what you're missing.
So we haven't decided yet. So we have a record that's technically out. I mean, they can buy it on our website. But what we did is, when we signed a deal with Fret Bar, we just re-released the original 2 that were from the original record. And Staying on Solo is something definitely brand new. We want to make a statement on that, and but we still haven't decided if we're going to turn this into maybe like a physical EP or CD, or keep moving forward with the singles.
Well, just maybe it's a process. You got to kind of think what's best for you, because one artist I've interviewed several times over years, he's telling me what he does with his stuff. He's got his own label and puts it out independently, but he was telling me, he goes, I'll make videos and singles and we'll put them out for people, but if they want to hear the rest of the album, they got to buy the album, stuff like that. So there's ways around it,
And that's how I look at it. I'm still like old school of, I feel like a record, like when I hear Aerosmith Rocks or Kiss Destroyer or Beatles White Album, they were making a statement at that time.
Yeah.
And you listen from the record from beginning to end.
Sure.
It tells a story, and and I feel like, again, if you hear the first, technically the first In Theory record, that's our statement in time. And if you listen to the songs in sequence, it makes sense. And I feel like it's like when you're reading a book.
Yeah, sure.
And you don't want to read chapter 13 before you read chapter 2.
Yeah.
And that's what the singles. You miss that. You miss that whole experience of that.
Because there's so much more than just the rock and roll all night, for example. Now, Anthony, we lost you for a little bit. You're welcome back. I want to ask you guys, I always love to ask people, what's the story behind the band's name, In Theory? That's kind of a cool, different name.
That's just something when we were first, the beginning, we were just kicking around a bunch of names, and it just kind of stuck,
Yeah.
There was really no, there's really no deep meaning to it. It was just.
Well, I just ask, it's In Theory kind of is a statement here, and it's kind of cool. It's a different sounding name. I think it gets people asking, oh, what's that? In Theory? In Theory of what? Okay.
Well, I think part of it too is when
I
was working. Cool. I was working on a different record. I was working on a compilation thing, and we were doing, In Theory, for the first time. And I think the people that we were playing with, it was just like in the room, like, in theory, well, this should work, or in theory, this should work, or in theory, this. And so it was sort of like a running joke with everybody in the room. So when Tony and I decided to make a name, we said, let's go with In Theory. It's because In Theory in theory should work. And that's pretty much where that came from.
So let me ask you, Mike, how old were you when you started playing the guitar? I was curious. And would you consider yourself self-taught or did you take lessons?
You mean singing? I was, I don't know, I guess around high school.
Okay.
And then I started taking it serious just out of high school.
And who were the
You know,
singers, Tony, that kind of really did it for you? You looked at and kind of said, that guy really, I dig what he does. I'd love to try that.
well, I mean, at the time, you got to remember in the 80s, it
Sure,
was
sure.
obviously Ronnie James Dio, Robert Plant,
Ronnie
even,
James Dio, I can't go wrong with my friend.
yeah,
Robert.
and
Yeah.
I remember, in the 80s when I was just deciding I wanted to be a singer, Striper came out with Soldiers Under Command, and I heard him sing, and I'm just like, that guy's not even human. Like I wanted
I
to
mean, if you
be able
listen to
to
the
sing like
last
that.
like three Striper albums, they're more metal than they ever were. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
his
Yeah,
voice.
no, he's great. And and now I obviously I still have those influences, but I have new influences, Jay Buchanan from Rival Sons and singers like that, as well as female singers, even down to Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga is a true singer.
And you bring up
So,
Ronnie James Dio. I tell you, I mean, people when they think of Black Sabbath, they say, "Oh, Ozzy," and that stuff is great because it's the original stuff. But people got to remember 1980 when Ozzy was no longer Black Sabbath. There was that thing for a little bit. Who the hell is going to replace Ozzy? But Ronnie James came in. He did his thing. In fact, Geezer wrote all the lyrics up until that point. And he said Ronnie was such a great lyric writer. No longer a need for me to do it. He saved Black Sabbath. I really believe that.
Yeah. Yeah, put him in a different direction,
yeah.
but at least,
Yeah,
reignited Black Sabbath. Like
Yeah,
Black Sabbath chapter 2.
and how about you, Mike? Who were your guitar heroes growing up? Who are the guys that influenced you?
You know, it changes all the time for me. But it all depends on if you're looking for technique wise or someone that, like, wow, I want to be like that. But for me, like the initial guy,
Yeah.
don't even know who they are, but remember the band Triumph?
Oh, sure, yeah.
When I was 14 years old, my brother took me to my first concert, which happened to be a Triumph concert.
Rick Emmett. Yeah.
I got to see Rick Emmett first row, and he had the explosions, and I mean, their show could rival something like with Kiss, and they had big lights and smoke bombs, and and when you're 14 years old, you're like, oh my god, and he's such a great guitar player. On top of that,
It's kind of weird, because Triumph, like in the 80s, they were in the 70s, they were huge and all over the place, even on MTV. And
yeah.
Rush just got a little bigger than Triumph, and a lot of people forgot about Triumph. That's why I'm glad they put the movie out.
Yeah, that was a good documentary with them, and
Yeah.
but when I saw them, and then I think, and then I saw who is that, like the Dregs, the Dixie Dregs after that,
Wow.
and
Yeah. Rod Morgenstein, yeah.
and then finally, and then a really funny thing, and then not even recently, pretty recently, I ended up doing some stuff with Rod Morgenstein. So I ended up doing a recording with Rod Morgenstein and Victor Wooten, and where it's eventually there'll be more of that. But yeah, I did a recording with those guys, and that's sort of like a Jeff Beck meets Eric Johnson type of stuff. A lot different than in theory, but it's very cool stuff to do. And but there's been so many influences. I mean, I love a lot of the blues guys, and Jeff Beck is a big guy for me, and then Bonamassa, and the list can go on and on. I mean, and it all depends. Like I love Deep and Black Sabbath as well as a guitar player, and I could put them on, or I can put on a Marcus King blues guy, or the list goes on and on depending on my mood.
Oh, sure. And here's a crazy question for you, Mike, because I know you're as much involved with the songwriting as Tony. And obviously you're a guitar player, but what's more important to you, maybe equally important, like coming up with memorable riffs or more about the songwriting and creating a really great song?
Well, I think a great song starts with the riff.
Yeah.
If you don't have that riff, there's no song.
I mean, you look like a song like Inner Sandman. I've heard James Hetfield talk about, that's the riff that pays. But man, I'm so damn sick of playing it. But that's the song. That's a song you got to play because the fans want to hear that song every night.
Yeah, but if you think about it, I mean, you go back in time. I mean, look, like, let's go back to like Zeppelin. They do, everybody can sing Black Dog. They can sing every guitar riff, but with the guitar riff, there's no great vocal to build upon. And I still think if you're in a hard rock business, and maybe more genres, but I'm just thinking that's our forte. If you can write a memorable guitar riff, that's just, oh man, it's like the icing. That's what gets the people right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Whether it's Zeppelin, or how many people sing, the riffs to, Enter Sandman or Van Halen. And everybody, right? They'll play air guitar.
Yeah.
But if there isn't a great guitar riff that's grabbing you instantly, there's nothing for the vocals to sit upon and then do their thing. Sure. And then the vocals take it to a whole other, if they're doing their right job, then they're taking it to a whole other world. And if you can match those, I think you got the magic, of a great song. But you need both.
Yeah, and that's why when you guys write a song, you create a song, and somebody tells you, it kind of has a Zeppelin vibe or whatever, that's your influence coming out. But then when you think, hey, we sat down, we created this song, Tony came up with the lyrics, you came up with the guitar part or whatever, and it's like, and then to have like a fan write to you or even, message you guys on your social media and tell you, oh man, I just love the latest video for, Staying on My Soul. You guys shot a great video, man. That song just touched me here. That's got to be like the ultimate feeling of accomplishment.
Yeah, it's sometimes surreal, but it's I mean, that it's weird. Like I always tell people that we write these songs for ourselves first, right? We have to be happy with them, and I think if Tony and I are happy, then we put it out there. But you never know what the fan or the public will gravitate towards. We may think it's the greatest thing. You put it out there and like, or we may be like, this one's a so-so one, but we like it. And that's the one that people are like, yeah, that's the best song you ever did.
Yeah.
You just know. But
on the flip side, you may have one song that is like a hit in one part of the world, and then nobody even cares about that song, in the other part of the world.
Yeah. That's true.
Hey, let me ask you last question, and then we'll let you guys go. I was curious, Tony. Talk about interpretation. Again, when you write a song, you kind of know what it's about. Maybe it's written something from your life, but have a fan come up and tell you, hey, this song you wrote, it touched me. It reminded me of maybe when I lost my mother or father, whatever the case may be. And you're like, wow, it's not what the song's about, but man, if it touched you like that, if it means something to you, that's great, So somebody takes your personal experience and they interpret it. That's got to be kind of a unique experience for you as a writer.
It definitely is, and ultimately, I don't really like to tell people what I wrote the song about.
Yeah, I get that.
Because I want them to interpret it the way they, and because lyrics could be universal. Like I'm not really specific with anything that I say.
And see, that's
I know what it means to me, but someone might hear it and might be like, oh, that's about my mother. She passed away. Like I felt that. It would be impossible for me to know any of that.
But of course.
If you could take those lyrics and apply it to your situation, the job's done. It's your song at that point.
That's the real test of a gifted songwriter, of almost the success of being a successful poet. That somebody could interpret your song in their own meaning, and it still means something. And you're like you said, I don't want to tell them what it's about because then it's going to ruin it for them.
Yeah, exactly. That's why people say what it's about. I mean, I'll tell you what I wrote it about, but it doesn't have to mean that. It could be, like I said, I purposely I write lyrics that I don't pinpoint. Like it could mean multiple
different things. Yeah, that's the beauty. Well, Tony and Mike, it's been great talking to you guys. Like I said, the interview will be getting posted probably sometime next week. I will let you guys know.
Thank you.
Let's keep in touch. I'd love to talk to you guys again when we have more music to talk about. Okay.
Sounds great.
Thank you, man.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Have a nice weekend.